Welcome to our WordPress installation lesson. So within this lesson, we're going to be going through how to set up and install WordPress on your server as well as on your local machine. So within this lesson, we're also going to be installing it on our local machine. And by the end of this lesson, I believe you're probably going to be surprised at how easy it is to really install WordPress locally as well as on your server. So first thing to do is go to wordpress.org, and this is where you can actually get the latest version of WordPress. And if you've got a previous version, within WordPress you can actually update and install new versions of WordPress so that you're always going to be up to date, and you're only going to really have to do this step one time where you go over, download WordPress, get the file, unzip it, and bring it into your server. So this is going to be the first starting step, and of course, depending on if you want to install it on your local machine or if you want to install it on the server level, the steps are going to be slightly different, but the process is going to be the same. So within this course, we're going to be using what's called a XAMPP server. So this allows me to run a local server on my machine, and this gives me the ability to go to localhost and see files that I have on localhost, as well as run PHP files right on my machine. So when I look at this file, this is a standard index.php file, and all I've written here is hello, in order to see that, or to make sure that we do have PHP functioning, and that's all that we need in order to start working with WordPress. And the other good thing about XAMPP is that it also provides you a MySQL database. And it's fully configured with PHP MyAdmin. So this is going to make the process a lot easier to set up. And as well, if you're working on your online server, it's going to be the process is going to be the same. So the only thing that's going to be different when we're doing local machine is where our server is actually located. And of course, we're not going to have to FTP up files to our server. So again, that's going to be the only real difference, and everything else should look the same. So if you do want to download XAMPP, we're going to provide a link in the resource section, and in order to get XAMPP up and running, it's really easy. Download the file, run the file. So depending on what platform you're on, so Windows, Linux, and Macs, they've got a version for each platform. So download the correct one for yours and simply run it, and that should bring up this type of control panel once it starts. And then you can simply start Apache, start MySQL, and you should be pretty much up and running. There is some custom configuration that I usually do within the config file. So I actually open up my config file and I relocate where my root directory is, because I don't want my root directory with XAMPP. It is always going to that default XAMPP directory. So I have redirected that, but that's the only real change that I'm making for these tutorials. And I also have my shell access here and a whole bunch of really good things. So once you install XAMPP, start up Apache, start up MySQL, and you should actually be able to go to localhost and go to PHP MyAdmin. And this should give you access to your database. And as well, there is some default configuration to access the database. So this is all contained within the XAMPP documentation. So you're going to need some of this as well in order to do your WordPress install. So once you've gone to WordPress and done your download, you get the zip file. So go ahead and unzip the zip file, and this is what you should see within that unzipped version. And then over here is where I've got my H drive websites WP, and I've got that index.php. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply copy this all over and paste it on top of this folder here. And this is going to be the same thing that you would be doing if you had set up a brand new website. So within your cPanel, you've got a brand new fresh website. So just go to your root directory and upload your brand new downloaded WordPress files into the root directory. And a lot of times with cPanel, you might have some ways to quickly install WordPress. So some of them have pre-configured software that you could simply with one click install WordPress. So that is a good way to install as well. So I just had to overwrite that PHP file, so now when I go to localhost, I should see the WordPress setup config file. So this is exactly where we want to be, and going into the next lesson, we're going to walk you through step by step, setting up the database and completing the configuration. So whether you're locally or on your server, you should be to a point where you've got this, when you go to the file, it automatically redirects you to the wp-admin setup config file. So whether you've copied them over into your local directory or you've FTP'd them up to your server directory, when you go to the index page, the root directory, you should see this. And if you don't see this, then try to download the files again, try to upload them to your server, and just to make sure that you do have everything running properly. And if you are doing it locally, all it is just copying those files over into that WordPress directory, and that's all I've done and to get me to this point. So setting up and running locally with XAMPP is really quick and easy, and it's going to be the same thing for either Macs or Windows. So just copy all of these files over, place them in the directory, go to your local host, and you should see this screen.